Welcome, teachers, professionals. Today, I will be going over change. How do we make change through interventions? How do we make change through various learning tactics to show our students that not only do we care for them, but we are working to improve their learning capability. My name is Skylar John Garza, and I will be presenting to a group of ELA team leaders who are specifically instructed with ELL, English Language Learners Instruction. So our improvement area. Our first improvement area shall be ELL instruction. Why? The last 3 calendar years has shown that English language learners in the 4th grade are not reaching the reading target for the STAR reading target. In 2017, we were at 38%. In 2018, we saw an improvement to 54%. However, we did see a drop to 44%, as you can tell within the graph. So the purpose of us going through these numbers and seeing it with our own eyes is that as a team, it seems that we have been not reaching the fullest potential that we could. So what we want to do is try to evaluate how or in what section where we are not maintaining a proper educational structure. So why this subpar? In the graph above, we can see that the average rate of passing for English language learners is low compared to other populations. After analyzing the graph above, you can see the trend forming with ELL students. As we can see, the average of ELL in orange, it has been going up and has been dropping, as previously mentioned with the table. It was at 30%, but it dropped by 16 and improved by 10. Something's not clicking. We're improving drastically by 1 year, but the next year we aren't keeping up that same type of improvement. So it leads us to question and wonder, where exactly are we not maintaining academic responsibility? Or where are we having a deficit or an achievement gap? The goals of our ELL intervention program is we shall assist all students, particularly students who show difficulty in processing the English language in relation to reading. Unexpected events. Students are not reaching reading target for 4th grade ELL students. So only 29% of our ELL students, actually only about 26% of our ELL students are reaching the target, when in reality we are supposed to be reaching 29%. However, changes in instruction should be able to assist in implementing long-lasting change. We want to see an improvement within the next 2 or 3 years, because not only do we want to show the state, but we want to show our parents, we want to show our stakeholders exactly where we want to improve and how we want to improve our instruction. So here are results for 4th grade English language learners in 2019. We had a 29%, that was our reading target. Did we meet it? No. Percent of grade level that met the target was 26%. However, only 35 of our students out of the 137 who took the test actually passed it. So this is one of the things that we have to make sure that we work through and work on. So one idea and a couple of tactics that we are going to try to evaluate here and try to push forward are 6 intervention strategies. These 6 intervention strategies include, number 1, emphasis on productive language, which is SWIRL. So in SWIRL, we want to, could you go ahead and turn the light for me, please? Thank you. So with SWIRL, there was an emphasis in the process of creating an example sentence. So an example of this would be, we would create a sentence for a student. We would allow for spacing to be within the sentence structure, at least 2 to 3 open spaces. And then we work with the students to then create a sentence that actually makes sense. So this process does take some time. However, we will be going through examples in a few minutes. And number 2, we will differentiate using different modalities. These modalities can be referenced in the QSSA program. And with this intervention, it's an acronym for question, signal, STEM, share, and assess. So this is kind of the same motive as SWIRL. However, we want to try our best to show that there's a little bit of difference when practicing these interventions. So in Tier 2 of RTI, this is specific English language learning tactics. So Tier 2 of RTI, as many of us do know, is a step within the response to intervention program. And this step within response to intervention will show that students within a smaller group setting shall and can grow exponentially through small group instruction. With this focused small group instruction, us as an ELA team can thus improve overall student literacy scores over time. So in number 4, our 4th intervention, creating culturally relevant text and descriptions. So our specific school, Houston Elementary, is in an area of town that is known for gentrification in Austin. So this means that we have a large population of Hispanic students, reaching approximately 92% in 2019. Because of this, we want to try our best to inform the students of their culture, allow students to explore their culture, allow students to use things that they know, that they understand in their culture when learning with specific texts. We want to make sure that students are enhancing their ability to understand their culture with the learning process. So that is our way of going through this intervention, number 4. And then number 5, we have technology-driven assistance. This specific technology-driven assistance will be gone over in more detail with our intervention practice. So, technology-driven assistance is basically, we have our own form of app. We create an app, we use an app that is currently being used for reading programs. We have this app, we let other parents and other staffers know that we are utilizing this app. And with this app, we would assign certain story reading modes or modules within the student's homework. So that student will be reading a module along with a professor's voice or a teacher's voice. So us as teachers will record for this module with the students reading along. And then the students will use that same module later on to assess or finish / complete a future homework assignment. So this is one example of technology-driven assistance that we can utilize within the classroom, and we'll be going over that more specifically in a few minutes. Next, we want to talk about academic English development. So academic English development, what that specifically means is we want to try our best to ensure that all types of English is being utilized with our reading. So if we have questions in relation to math, we need our students to understand. We need our students to know that these math problems, they're not the end of the world. They aren't the most difficult things, because guess what? We are showing them and introducing them to academic English within the English classroom. We want to make sure that our reading target is met. To ensure that, we have to implement these 6 intervention strategies. There are different variables or variances or abilities to complete each one, but we want to try our best as a team to ensure that we are trying to implement each one in a specific process. So as instructors, we want to ensure that we provide a lesson plan. And I have provided for us a lesson plan specifically going over TEKS for 4.1 or 4.3 going towards 4.6. So these TEKS, we are going to slowly unpack and try to understand exactly why we need our students to use and understand these knowledge and skills for the future. We need to implement this lesson plan, and with this lesson plan, I will show my fellow instructors, I will show y'all exactly how I plan this ELL instruction and ELA instruction to improve students' ability in the future. So we will be going over the lesson plan with a zoom-in view of the paper. Thank you. In our lesson plan, we can see that the teacher is Skylar John Garza. The date is January 25th, 2020, and our subject grade level is 4th grade ELA reading. So, for materials, we will have a searching for a theme graphic organizer. We will have a main idea versus theme assortment paper. We will have post-it notes, colored pencils for partner bilingual pair work, and a PowerPoint with video. So, for our ELA TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, we will ensure that students have a reading comprehension and literary text/theme and genre. Students will analyze and make inferences and draw conclusions about theme and genre in different cultural, historical, and contemporary contexts, and provide evidence from the text to support their understandings. We need to ensure that students summarize and explain the lesson or message of a work of fiction as its theme. Compare and contrast the adventures and exploits of characters, example, the trickster, in traditional and classic literature. We also need to ensure 4.6 is being fulfilled. Reading comprehension of literacy text and fiction. Student understand and make inferences of conclusions about structure and elements in fiction, and provide evidence from text to support their understanding. Students are expected to 4.6a, sequence and summarize the plot's main events and explain their influence on future events. 4.6b, describe the interaction of characters including relationship and the changes they undergo. Students will record the characteristics of folktale books and write a definition of the various styles of folktales. They will compare and contrast the story elements of several texts. Students will use the story elements and the ways characters change to develop themes for folktales. They will differentiate between the main idea and the theme of the story. Students will practice beginning of the year reading workshop procedures and routines that are expectations for the remainder of the year. Vocabulary. Vocabulary that we will be discussing is genre, theme, literary, fable, myth, tall tale, legend, fairy tale, plot, characters, setting, problem, solution, morale, infer, visualize, and purpose. Here are some differentiation strategies that we have made for English language learners. We prepare copies of the text with Tier 2 words bolded or underlined, provide a visual support, and target student definitions. We model using context clues to build visual vocabulary understanding. Many of Aesop's fables in Spanish can be found at this website below. We work with partners and teams in Tier 2 specific instruction to fine-tune supplemental instruction to meet unique academic needs. Ask questions and receive feedback from the teacher and their peers. We are planning to engage. We instruct each table group to try to figure out what the story is about based on clues in the list. We suggest that students try to figure out words that will fit into story elements, characters, setting, problem, and solution. After the groups have made the predictions, we show the video. Tell students that this week they will be exploring different types of stories that belong to the genre of folktales, and will be comparing and contrasting stories. Essential questions. How does understanding the structures and features of a text help you comprehend better when reading? What do good readers do to identify the message or theme behind the story the author has written? How does finding the theme of a story help you as a reader? Explanation. Each genre has a unique structure. The story and elements of a text help the reader to understand the plot and the theme of the story. Knowing the theme of the story helps the reader to make connections to their own life. In a reading workshop, readers have daily time for reading from books they choose to read. They talk to partners about their reading and write to learn to help them think about what they are reading. Readers monitor their comprehension and use fix-up strategies when meaning breaks down. Elaboration. To continue, the instructor will hand each student a booklet that helps the student understand what connections they have with the characters in Aesop's fable. The booklet will have the same concept as the whole class activity, only this time the students will be completing their booklets with little or no guidance. The students will open his booklet. The instructor will open his book to the first page and have the students do the same. He will then have a student read the paragraph found at the bottom of the page and then read it for a second time. He will have the students look at their individual set of characters from Aesop's fable and have them select the character that best describes himself. In evaluation, we will assess the students on what they were taught and what they will learn. The students will be responsible for determining how. With this book, the students will determine which characters share characteristics with themselves. At the top of the page, every student will set top of this booklet, every student will write a set of sentences that describe how their character developed in the fable. The students will be responsible for determining how they develop, and on the lines provided at the bottom, the students will need to write their answers on the blank box spaces found towards the end of the sheet. In this specific class, there are no accommodations. And this concludes our lesson plan intervention practice. So, as we just went over the lesson plan, I want to go in detail specifically with the intervention that we will be completing here. So, if we will move the camera to the right side, we will be going over the specific interventions. So, we will be introducing swirl. Swirl is specifically swirl is utilized through sentence structure. As teachers, we need to understand that not all students have a full understanding of sentence structure, especially when we are dealing with second graders and third graders. So as an ELA team, we need to try our best to put our heads together to try to formulate and understand how fourth grade students are thinking when they initially come into our classrooms. In order to do this, we need to create sentences. We need to say, my name, but can't understand. My name is Josh, but I can't understand. So, when at first glance this may seem like a confusing sentence. My name is Josh. We did miss is before, but my name is, what is your name? But who can't understand? This starts making the student question themselves. It starts creating connections within the student's brain to automatically understand that my name is Christian, my name is Tristan, my name is Edgar, but I understand that I relates to them. Most students will have this ability. However, it's when we start getting to more difficult sentences is when we start really testing the student's ability. With swirl, we want to make sure that they're able to speak, write, interact, read, and listen. We want to ensure that all 5 of these abilities within TEKS, especially within our TEKS, are fulfilled. We want to ensure that the student speaks the sentence. We want to ensure that the student writes the sentence. We want to ensure that us, as an instructor, interact with the student along with the sentence. These sentences can be bilingual in nature. These sentences can also be English-based. However, we need to ensure that this student then, after interacting, reads the sentence. Not once, not twice, but a total of 3 times. At that point, they can then listen to themselves, listen to their own voice, connecting with their brains that, hey, this works as a sentence. This shall work as a sentence if I keep using it, if I keep practicing, I can actually achieve good things with English. And so that's one tactic that we do want to try our best to implement in our first few weeks of class. As we had mentioned with QSSSA, question, signal, stem, share, and assess. we as instructors shall be using QSSA at the beginning of every lesson. Every single time we go through a lesson objective, we go through one. In lesson objective 2, we shall use a question, signal, stem, share, and assess intervention in order to ensure that we identify any student difficulty within the lesson. So when we identify this difficulty, we'll be able to use it after assessing. We use it to then come back to the original question and try our best to figure out a method to ask the same question but assist that student in understanding. So first we need to ensure that the student knows the answer. We have to give it to them. We have to be able to give them the real answer and able to show them exactly why we have this answer. In order to do this, we need to go through multiple methods of understanding and helping the student understand various questions. We need to create pictures, we need to use pictographs, we need to utilize all forms of graphs, charts that we have already shown students in the past and implement them into various sentence structures. Various questions that we have within these sentence structures or with these sentence structures and help the students truly understand where the lesson might be going. So in our next intervention, we'll be going over tier 2 of response to intervention. We already discussed response to intervention a little bit, but we'll be going over specifically why small group instruction is essential. So as English language instructors, as ELA teachers, we need to make sure that our students are able to collaborate effectively and use their friends, use their classmates as resources. Not every single student will understand everything that is taught within one lesson. However, when we use a response to intervention tactic, we ensure that various levels of students are helping one another out. That various levels of students are assisting one another in fine-tuning the language, the usage of the language, and how to use it correctly. So in order to ensure this, we need to make sure that all students within smaller groups, that there are various levels, that not the best performing students are all working with one another. We need to ensure as instructors that we use the QSA as a tactic to understand this student might be at level 1 of understanding this lesson, but this student might be at level 2, this one at level 3, this one at level 4. In that case, it is our responsibility to do one of two things. We either help them fine-tune the language in separating the students into almost randomized groups, as in 1 with 2, 3, and 4, 1 with 2, 3, and 4, to ensure that students that do truly understand most of the lesson are able to assist the students who do not understand it as much. However, during this instruction, we need to make sure that we have at least one assistant. Any type of assistant, it can be an aide, it can be a specific ELA instructor assistant. However, we need to make sure that we have one assistant for at least 15 minutes of this intervention. So to ensure that we have this one assistant available, us as an ELA program are going to ask the principal and ask the administration to hire an English language arts aide. And this aide will be working in different English language arts classes that go through ELL instruction, and this aide will be that one assistant. And with that one assistant, that assistant will work with certain groups of students who the instructor is not specifically working with. Now that aide or that assistant will be helping students after helping certain students, they will then report back to the instructor and collaborate with the instructor to truly understand which students are still having difficulty and then to take the next step. The next step to the RTI intervention for small group instruction is the process of the students who have the most difficulty, who are having currently the most difficulty and still having the most difficulty, will be put into a focus group. This specific focus group of students who are having difficulty will work individually with the instructor while the assistant goes to the next step with the other ELL students within the ELA class. And through this instruction, we hope that the instructor will be able to utilize small group instruction and help the students who are having the greatest difficulty boost up their ability to understand and use English language in stories. So number 4, we have discussed cultural connections. We want to create cultural connections for the students. We want to make sure that students truly understand where they come from and to understand where they can be. Not to push themselves down, but to truly see, wait, maybe people in my culture, maybe people who have lived around me haven't done as much as they could have because of one reason or this reason or this reason. However, as a student, I will take advantage and control of my own destiny and push myself to reach my fullest potential. And this is what we are trying to emulate with our cultural connections. We want to make sure that the students learn about their individual cultures. We want to make sure the students have a grasp and an understanding of how to use these various facts and ideas to improve their own reading and to understand themselves. And with this, we move on to our 6th intervention, which is academic English. With academic English, we use various forms of question words. So we want to use math problems, we want to use science problems, we want to use reading problems. We want to use any type of problems that have various forms of questioning. With this questioning, we want to ensure that English language learners develop their academic English. This means they understand various forms and sentence structures that are used in tests, that are used in various word problems, that are used in various practice tests and assessments in the future. We want to ensure that the students have the ability and capability to use various English words and questioning forms to understand. If an English language learner, if a student sees a question and they may feel this is difficult, this has some words I don't know. But with academic English, we use specific English words that have been used in previous tests that are more than likely going to be used in future tests. And we ensure that students have that experience of seeing these words, utilizing these words, and being able to then understand how to answer these various questions when they come up. And that specifically goes over our various interventions. We have discussed 6 various interventions, including the SWELL intervention, the QSSA intervention, the Tier 2 of RTI intervention, cultural connection intervention, technology usage intervention, and academic English. And then we will go on to questions about technology intervention. Thank you very much. One of the main interventions that we want to discuss today and really drill down is technology. How can we utilize technology in our school environment to ultimately help the students reach their fullest potential? So what we want to try our best to do is implement audio-video elements. These audio-video elements means that us as instructors will record things. We'll record ourselves speaking. We'll use certain apps, such as reading literacy apps, to develop and engage with the students at school and away from school. But the only way this process can truly develop and flower and blossom into the great literacy minds that our students can have, we need to communicate with the parents. We need to ensure that the parents do know that when the students have homework, when the students have certain assignments that they have to get done at the home, that they do have an ability to access an app to assist with that homework, to access an audio-visual presentation to show the student exactly what they may be missing with the literacy element or where they may need to improve. So with these audio-visual elements, we can use certain pen drives to record ourselves speaking to the students. We can use, like I mentioned, apps. But what we really want to try our best to do is ensure that the students have the same capability with technology that us as teachers do. We need to be honest with our students, and we need to be upfront about what needs to be used to access certain technology. And if students do not have that ability because of one reason or another, we need to, one, try our best to find the funding to allow for that student to have the capability, or ensure that there is another route that we can go through. So, at this point, I will open up to any questions that any of the instructors may have about these various interventions. Yes?
How do you think that the culturally relevant texts and descriptions will make certain students feel out of place if that isn't their culture? How are you going to basically put that all in together without basically dividing them in a way? You know what I mean?
So, what we want to try our best to do with cultural connections is try to drill down what our students feel that they need to understand. So sometimes students may not exactly know where they come from or where they are, but what we want to show them is that there are various cultures, there are various things that within our own Latino culture, there are various routes of understanding for how your culture is understood. So we want to try our best to show students 5 different ways that our culture can be seen, specifically maybe the Latino culture, or maybe go over specifically demographically how the Latin American students or how Latin American people came to the United States. Go through stories that show students, hey, this person looks like me. This person sounds like my grandmother. This person sounds like my grandfather. This person shows me, or this environment reminds me of where I come from. And that's where we want to try to show students that, hey, we as instructors want to give you the best ability and capability to use your culture to understand English and create better stories from it.
So have most teachers already put this intervention into play, and if so, what is the outcome? Have you done any research on that?
With our specific technology intervention, we have done some research to back it up that certain student segments and populations, such as subpopulations of English language learners, do specifically improve through audio-visual representation instruction. And so with that instruction, we want to ensure that students not only see it, read it, we want them to use it, we want them to practice it, but correctly. We are using these audiovisual elements to ensure that students are able to see an example of how exactly an instructor might read a story, or how an instructor might use certain verbs or might use certain nouns within a sentence structure. Now this may seem like, oh, how exactly will this improve over time? Or how exactly will this show drastic improvement from TEKS or STAR testing specifically? So with STAR testing specifically, we are really trying to show students how to understand stories, why stories are important, and how stories can show what a reader really believes, and certain things such as cultural aspirations and future inventions, things that open up a student's mind to not only character development, but various elements of the story itself. Thank you very much for your questions, sir. So, sir, we can go back to your questions.
As we expect to use any technology inside of the classroom, I know your whole presentation is focused on outside the classroom, how you want them to identify with the culture outside the classroom, but I feel I want to know mainly is how would they interact with this technology inside the classroom? Would they interact with the cultural technology? inside the classroom? Will you envelop, I guess you could say, your classroom inside their cultures, whether or not they're Hispanic or any other culture?
So the best way to use technology in the classroom to create connections through culture is to ensure that students have the references, the ability, the wide breadth of research to show that my culture is represented.
Also,
We want to ensure representation of the culture within the technology. So the only way that we can truly do this is to, as a reading team, as an ELL team, come together and grab various materials, various texts to show the Latino culture, the Latina culture. To show the quote-unquote white culture, to show the African American culture. We want to ensure that we have all of these cultural representations in place to ensure that every single student sees their own representation, their own self within the story. And the way to utilize technology with those cultural connections and to create those cultural connections is through seeing it, reading it, and using it. If we practice it correctly, it will become ingrained in us. If we utilize technology within the classroom to ensure that all of the students, especially English language learners, focus, if this focus takes place and takes hold, then we shall improve overall through technology, specifically this intervention. After understanding and using the lesson plan provided, we have unpacked a little bit of why the TEKS is important to instructors. We need to ensure that students have the ability to speak, have the ability to write, have an ability to use certain elements in the story to understand and create their own stories. And so this is one thing that our TEKS 4.3 Literary Text and Drama specifically is going through. And we as instructors need to highlight the very beginning of how we create stories, why we create stories, and our process behind creating these stories. If we implement our intervention strategies along with creating stories, we as an ELA team shall improve and shall push the 4th grade students to greater heights. With that, we want to try our best to use various forms of assessments. Our various forms of assessments include formative and summative. Formative assessments that we will be using include strategic questioning, a photo album creation, word journal, vocabulary paralysis, think, pair, share, story creation, and daily journal responses. We also have a creation with academic questions, and that falls into the academic English category of intervention practice. So these various formative assessments, we will be utilizing them throughout the school year. We will be utilizing them in the beginning, the first week of class, the 2nd week of class, the 3rd week of class, and we'll be creating a journal for these students. English creation storybook, a storybook of stories, your stories. Any way that instructors want to spin it, as long as we are trying our best to collect the students' stories and help them reflect back on them, to help them create and understand why these various literary elements are important to improving their ELL instruction. So why are we doing this? We want to make sure that our summative assessment, our test at the end of the year, for our 4th grade STAR students, for taking the ELA 4th grade reading STAR, we need to ensure that those students, the ELL students, are improving. We need to ensure that all ELA students improve in order to get a decent enough summative assessment score at the end of the year. We need to ensure that our STAR test and our 6-week benchmark test, or we need to ensure that our STAR test improved. The passing rate, the met standard rate is met. We need to ensure that. We need to ensure that students through our 6-week benchmark test are slowly improving in their understanding of academic English and their understanding of how stories are created through their understanding of various word structures within English. So to ensure this, students need the support of educators and administration to accomplish the goals. We need to improve reading capability by 8% within 2 years. We need to ensure that the 2nd graders, the 3rd graders, all come up and by 4th grade, they know exactly what needs to be done. That these students are improving slowly through 2nd, 3rd grade to when 4th grade happens, when we get them as instructors, that we use these various intervention strategies to improve the overall score by 8%. Currently, we are at about 54%. We did improve from 44 to 54. However, we as a school need to ensure, or actually we dropped from 54 to 44%. To ensure that we reach 50% once more, to ensure that we reach a proper level of English language students' ability, we need to improve by 8% over 2 years. And to do this, we need to implement the 6 intervention strategies. Why? We need to gather information from educators to improve our tactics. We as an ELA team need to work with the 2nd grade ELA teachers, the 3rd grade ELA teachers, the 1st grade ELA teachers to create and understand why our students, create a plan and understand why our students are having difficulty. And through this, we will create and improve our tactics. Our 6 intervention strategies are specifically for elementary students. I am putting it into a format of 4th grade ELA students for English language learners, but these 6 intervention strategies can be used through 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. And we need to ensure that those other ELA teams have the same information in hand so that they can slowly improve their students' abilities to when we have the students, we are able to skyrocket the possibilities with these students' education. So with this, what's next? We implement the plan to improve ELL education at Houston Elementary. Specifically, these next 2 years, we'll be focusing on 4th grade ELA students. But we want to ensure that within 2 years from that point, that our 2nd graders who will become 4th graders have improved at least by 8%. We need to ensure that all our students are understanding and utilizing all the information that us as instructors provide for them. And to do this, we need to ensure that we have proper intervention strategies, we have proper research that back up these intervention strategies, and that we use these tactics and properly highlight the data and the type of assessments and show what works. This is why we will be following up with meetings every two weeks in order to ensure that us as ELA instructors are providing the best education for our students, to lessen the educational gap for all students, specifically ELL students. And here are my references above, and that concludes the presentation. Thank you.